So people have this idea of what fear looks like, right? Screaming, running, crying in a locked bathroom, bruises, panic, a woman hiding for her life. And sometimes it absolutely looks like that, but more often it doesn't. Being afraid of an abusive man doesn't always look like terror. Sometimes it looks like doing the dishes. It looks like staying quiet when you really want him to speak. It looks like texting him back, I love you too, even though your stomach is in knots. Sometimes fear looks like love, and that is what most people don't understand. Fear in these relationships, it doesn't feel how people think it should feel, right? You don't walk around thinking, I'm terrified of him. You think, I just don't want to make him mad. I just have to be careful how I say this. You're managing. That's what it feels like, right? It feels like control, like keeping the peace. You don't even recognize it as fear because fear has become your normal. People think fear is the reason to leave, but often it's why she stays. I'm Lisa Sonni, and I'm a toxic and abusive relationship expert who has lived this. I didn't leave the moment it got bad, or the second time, or the fifth time. I stayed. I loved him. I thought that if I could just do it right, I could be more patient, more understanding, then maybe he would change. Maybe he would finally treat me the way that I deserved, the way that he said that I deserved. And the truth is, I didn't know that I was afraid. Not really. Not until after I was already out. So if you've ever thought to yourself, was it really that bad? This video is for you. Hit subscribe. So let's talk about what fear actually looks like in an abusive relationship and how so many women don't even realize that they are afraid until it's over. I also want to urge you to send this video to someone who doesn't understand, because I hope that it brings them clarity and understanding why fear can be really confusing to look at and why it keeps you. Here's the thing, right? When you're in it, fear doesn't feel like terror. It can feel like responsibility. You think that it's your job to keep him calm, to not set him off. You're scanning his moods. You wait until he's in a good headspace to bring something up. You lie, not because you're manipulative, but because it's safer than telling the truth. And examples like, you say, I'm fine, because it's easier than dealing with what happens when you tell him that you're not. And all of this just gets so normalized that you actually stop questioning it. You stop seeing it as survival. You start seeing it as love, as commitment, as doing your best. And here's the thing that people don't get. Fear can also look like doing nothing, right? When you're in survival mode, your body doesn't always fight or run. Sometimes it freezes. Sometimes it fawns, right? You appease, you people please, you over apologize. You try to preempt the explosion before it happens. You make yourself small. You get very, very good at reading his tone, at avoiding all these landmines. I used to always think, okay, so if I don't bring it up on Thursday, because that's the middle of the week, I'll bring it up on Sunday, but Sunday's the day we hang out together, so I don't know if I should bring it up then, because what if he says I'm ruining the day? That's what fear looks like. And then people ask you, oh, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you fight back? Because you knew that fighting would make it worse. Freeze is safer. Fawn is safer. Because staying silent is sometimes the only way to survive. And on the outside, people look at you and they're like, well, you chose to stay. Maybe it wasn't that bad. A scary man does not always look scary. Sometimes he's calm and measured and quiet. He doesn't yell. He lowers his voice. He tells you it's your fault. He doesn't hit you. You just live in fear of disappointing him. He doesn't scream, but you flinch every time he walks into the room. And when you finally try to leave, that's when the mask comes off. That's when the charm turns into like threats and guilt, cold rage, or love bombing even. Because the fear isn't what he does once. It's what he might do next. Now I want to use some real life examples. Let's use Cassie and Diddy, right? She told the world what he did. He raped her, he beat her, he trafficked her, he surveilled her, over a decade of abuse. And still people ask, well, why didn't she leave? Then the hotel video came out, security footage, right? Showing him chasing her, grabbing her, slamming her to the floor, dragging her back to the hotel room. And suddenly, some people believed her. Mostly women, not all women. Plenty still don't, because they say, well, she could have left. That is how invisible fear is. People can't see that in the text messages when she said, yeah, I'm down for the freak-offs, that meant she was too afraid to say no. That's how invisible it is. A woman can be bleeding in front of you and people will still ask what she did to cause it and why she didn't leave. And sometimes fear doesn't even feel like fear. Like I said, it feels like love. That is the most crazy hard part. You love him. You believe in the version of him who says that he's sorry, the one who cries, who says he's broken, he promises he'll change. And you believe that if you just keep hanging on just a little bit longer, if you just show him what unconditional love looks like, maybe this time it'll stick. And it's not love, right? It's fear. And they kind of like package it up in hope and they make it look like love. That's the trap of a trauma bond. Because when you mix intermittent kindness with control, you create addiction, confusion. You create the feeling that the abuse is your fault and the repair is your job. You use another example that's a bit different, right? Britney Spears. Let's talk about Britney, okay? She smiled, she performed, she told us she was fine. We believed her because she didn't look like someone who was being abused. But behind the scenes, she had no control over her own life. Her father controlled her money, her body, her choices. She couldn't get married, she couldn't drive, she couldn't remove an IUD. She complied, she smiled, and we took that to mean that she was okay. Compliance is not consent. Performing isn't peace. Sometimes women play along because it is safer than saying no. I mean, my God, you even see that in every time a woman laughs when she's uncomfortable at a horrible misogynistic joke, or she walks quickly away from someone or is kind to someone. And when it's finally over, when he's gone or you leave or something breaks, that's when it hits. The fear that you didn't really register, didn't click in the moment, that's going to come crashing at you. You remember something he said or like a look he gave you, a night you thought was normal, and suddenly your hands are shaking. You can't breathe. You're crying and you don't even know why. That's your body finally coming out of survival mode. That is your nervous system trying to find safety again. You weren't calm back then. You were numb. Here's another one. Keke Palmer, right? Her ex Darius, he publicly shamed her for what she wore, tried to control her image, and when she filed for custody and protection, citing abuse, people went all quiet, right? He never hit her on camera. The abuse wasn't loud. It was subtle. It was emotional. It was about control. And people didn't want to call it abuse because it doesn't fit this little picture that people have in their heads of what abuse looks like. That's how so many women are trapped. If it doesn't look violent, it doesn't count. But abuse that hides behind image and shame and manipulation is still abuse. And fear that hides behind silence is still fear. There's another creator online, Laura Clery, Stephen Hilton, you guys know that one? He wasn't the yelling type, right? He didn't seem to throw things. He was the nice guy, but he was gaslighting her. He manipulated her. He blamed his addiction, his mental health, his past, and this woman carried all of it. She loved him, she protected him, and she kept trying to make it work. Even with fame, even with money, even with resources, she was stuck. Because abuse isn't about how smart you are. It's not about how successful you are. It's about how someone uses your empathy against you. And fear isn't always about what he'll do to you. It's about what he'll do to himself or to your kids or to your reputation if you leave. And in Laura's comment sections, you see people saying, oh, they're both drama. They're both the problem. She has no reason to be afraid of him. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt safer lying than telling the truth? I mean, my God, have we all not been teenagers where you felt like you can't tell your parents the truth? We all know what it feels like. And yet we take that away from victims when they're adults because, oh, it's different now. Have you ever apologized just for asking for what you need? Do you scan his mood before you speak? Do you flinch when your phone dings because you're worried it's him? Do you feel like you can't be fully honest because it's going to turn into a fight? If you said yes to any of that, you were afraid. Even if you didn't call it fear, even if no one else saw it, even if no one else will call it that, even if you're still in it now, telling yourself it's not that bad, there's a reason you're watching this video. I want you to hear this. Fear does not need your permission to exist. It is natural. It is intuitive. It's there. You just didn't have the language for it, but now you do. I am giving you the language. Name it, because once you name it, you can do something about it. The longer you stay afraid, the more you teach your body that this is normal, that this is love, that this is what you're worth. And it's not. It never was. You think that staying keeps the peace, right? It keeps you small and it teaches your nervous system that safety is silence. It teaches your nervous system that love is self-abandonment, that your comfort doesn't matter. And you do not need to keep living like this. You don't have to keep calling fear commitment or understanding or hope. Call it what it is. And then you can build something different. If you're ready to stop living around his moods and start rebuilding your identity, your confidence, your peace, please join me in Rise and Rebuild. It's one of my 12-week group coaching programs. I co-host it with Dr. Peter Salerno. I built it for this exact reason, because so many women don't need more information. They need transformation. They need someone who's lived it and a community who gets it. You don't need to be ready to leave. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be ready to see the truth, to stop lying to yourself about what you can tolerate. If you've made it this far in the video, that's not an accident. There's a part of you that's done pretending that everything's fine. And I'm here for that part. Subscribe if you haven't already and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the fear gets louder before it breaks.